The nurse call alarm blared just as the woman's voice cut through the doorway. "She's not my daughter!" I clutched my stomach, cold sweat prickling my neck. Hearing the nurse pause mid-step, the air was sharp with antiseptic under fluorescent lights. I understood they didn't just want my home, they wanted to erase me. And tonight, I had the proof to sever the hand that had gripped my throat for 8 years. My name is Lucy Johnson. I am 28 years old, and this is my home. Denver woke up cold on Saturday. The light streaming through my floor-to-ceiling windows was thin and white, making the polished concrete floors of my loft look like a sheet of ice. I designed this space myself, poured every dollar and every late night from my business, juniper stone interiors, into making it a sanctuary. It was the one place in the world where the locks responded only to me. Until this morning, I stood in the entryway, coffee mug in hand, and watched the keypad by the door. The light was blinking red, muted. From the hallway outside, I heard the digital voice, "Access denied." A pause, then the sound of a palm slapping the metal door. What the hell? Lucy. I didn't move. My heart kicked once, hard, against my ribs. Access denied. Another slap. Open the damn door. The code isn't working. I had changed the codes at 3 a.m. After the party, after I finally understood what they were doing, I had sat at my kitchen island, the city lights glittering below, and methodically deleted every guest code, every family override, every digital key I had ever issued. I erased my father, I erased Vivian, and I erased Trent. The slapping stopped and was replaced by a heavy, rhythmic thud. It wasn't a fist, it was a shoulder. The entire doorframe vibrated, rattling the high-security deadbolt I'd had installed last year. "Open this door right now. This is my house." That was Trent, my stepbrother. His voice was thick with the entitlement I'd watched him marinate in for 8 years, ever since his mother, Vivian, had married my father. I set my coffee mug down on the console table. My hand was perfectly steady. "Trent, stop it. You'll damage the veneer." Vivian's voice, sharp, controlled, and colder than the Denver morning. She was always about appearances, about maintaining the surface, even when she was committing grand larceny. The pounding stopped. I heard her heels click on the hallway tile, a sharp rap from her knuckles. "Lucy, open this door. We need you to sign the transfer papers." Transfer papers. The audacity of it hung in the air, thick and toxic. "This is ridiculous," she continued, her voice rising slightly. "We discussed this. Your father and I have been very generous, letting you stay here, letting me stay here, in the home I had purchased, in the home my name, and only my name, was on the deed for." I walked to the door, my bare feet silent on the cold concrete. I looked through the peephole. There they were, the unholy trinity. Trent, flushed and furious, leaning against the opposite wall. He was 22 but had the petulant scowl of a toddler. He was wearing an expensive jacket I was sure my father had paid for. Vivian Cole stood front and center. She was impeccable, as always, in a buttercream-colored suit. Her blonde hair was pulled into a severe, elegant chignon. In her arms, she wasn't holding a purse. She was holding a thick, leather-bound document folio, an inch thick with papers, the transfer papers, and behind them, lingering near the elevator bank, was my father. Richard Ellison. He looked tired. He wouldn't look at the door. He was studying the fire extinguisher case on the wall, as if it held the secrets to the universe. His silence was his answer. It had been his answer for 8 years. My throat tightened. The betrayal I'd felt last night congealed from a hot, messy panic into a single, cold point of clarity. They weren't just going to ask. They were going to take. They had already started. I pulled my phone from the pocket of my sweatpants. My thumb found the camera icon and swiped to video. I pressed the red button. The small digital timer began to count. 1, 2, 3. I reached up and slid the security chain into its groove. The metallic rasp was loud in the silence. Outside, Vivian's head snapped toward the sound. "Lucy, do not be childish." I turned the deadbolt. The tumblers fell back with a heavy, satisfying clunk. I opened the door exactly 4 inches. The chain caught. Pulling taut. Their faces filled the gap. Vivian's eyes, narrowed in irritation. Trent's, bulging with rage. My father's, still avoiding mine. Looking somewhere over my shoulder, I raised the phone, aiming the lens directly at Vivian's face. No. The word came out quiet, but it landed in the hallway like a grenade. It was the first time in 8 years I had said it to her and meant it. Vivian's perfectly painted mouth opened, then closed. She was processing this new information. This was not part of her plan. "What did you say?" she hissed. I said, "No, you are not coming in. You are not getting this house, and you are not to come back here." You ungrateful little Trent lunged forward, shoving his shoulder into the gap. The chain snapped taut. Groaning against the screws, the door jamb shuddered. I didn't flinch. I just held the phone steady, capturing his violent, contorted face. "Get back," Trent Vivian ordered, shoving him back. She rearranged her suit jacket, her composure slipping. The mask was cracking. "Lucy, this is community property. Your father?" "My father's name is not on the deed," I said, my voice as flat and hard as the door between us. "My father's name is not on the mortgage. My father has not paid 1 single cent toward this property. I bought this home 2 years before he even met you." "Semantics," she spat. "We are a family. We are moving Trent's startup into the city. And this is the most logical asset. Now, be a good daughter and sign the papers. We will set you up in a nice, smaller apartment." The file she was holding, she tapped it. "This is all prepared. It's simple. Get off my property." I said. I was speaking to all 3 of them. But my eyes were on my father. He finally looked at me. His expression was a pathetic mix of shame and annoyance. He was annoyed at me for making this difficult. "Lucy, honey," he started, taking a step forward. "Just listen to Vivian. It's for the family. Trent needs a leg up, and I am the leg I asked." He had no answer. He just wrung his hands. "You have 1 minute to leave this floor," I said, my voice dropping. "Or I'm calling the police for harassment." "You wouldn't." Trent scoffed. "Try me," I said. I pushed the heavy door closed. The sound of Trent yelling "bitch" was cut off by the solid thud of wood meeting the frame. I slid the deadbolt back into place. Click. I leaned back, my entire body pressing against the door, as if my weight alone could keep them out. My hands were shaking, a deep, uncontrollable tremor that started in my chest and radiated out to my fingertips. But my eyes were dry. I was done crying. I had cried for 8 years. I had cried when my father let Vivian move into our house, the one I grew up in, and paint my late mother's library a hideous shade of beige. I had cried when he used my college fund to pay for Trent's rehab. I had cried when they'd borrowed money from my fledgling business for one of their failed schemes. No more. I slid down the door until I was sitting on the cold floor. My breath came in shallow gasps. I was still recording. I could hear them in the hallway, their voices muffled but clear. "This is insane. She can't do this." Vivian's shriek. "I told you she was unstable." My father's weak murmur. "This is what happens when you let her think she's independent. Just break it down." Dad, Trent yelled. "Don't be an idiot!" Vivian snapped. "This is a high-rise. We do this clean. She will break. She always breaks." I stopped the recording. I saved the file. I sat there, my back against the vibrating door, and looked across my living room. The morning light was hitting the wall of built-in bookshelves I had designed and built with my own 2 hands, my tools, my drafts, my life. I looked at my desk in the corner, under a crystal paperweight. There it was, the thick packet of documents I had pulled from my safe at 3:30 in the morning, the deed to this condominium, purchased by Lucy Johnson, the mortgage, in my name alone, and stacked neatly beside it, 8 years of mortgage statements. 96 payments, every single one auto-drafted from the Juniper Stone Interiors business account. My name, my money, my home. Outside, the pounding started again. This time it was Trent. Using his full body weight, the doorframe felt like it was going to splinter. "You're going to pay for this!" "Lucy," he screamed, his voice cracking with adolescent rage. "When I get in there, I swear to God." "Get her out," Vivian was shouting now, her polished veneer gone. "Richard, do something. Call the building manager. Tell them she's having an episode. Tell them she's a danger to herself. My father. Maybe we should just come back later. She's upset." "She's not upset. She's defiant." I picked up my phone again. I hit record. I held it up, aiming the microphone toward the wood. I let it capture every word, every threat, every lie. Let them scream. Let them bang on the door. They were just building my case. They kept it up for an hour. An entire hour of shouting, threats, and attempts to manipulate the lock. The building security must have been called, because I heard a new voice, deeper, trying to de-escalate. "Ma'am, I can't force entry into a unit unless there's a warrant or a wellness check request from the police." "She is unwell," Vivian insisted. "She's my stepdaughter. She has psychological problems. She stole these papers from her father. I recorded it all." Then, finally, silence. It fell over the apartment like a layer of thick, choking dust. I waited. My muscles tensed, expecting another assault. Nothing. The sound of the elevator chimed in the distance, its doors sliding shut. They were gone. For now. I stayed on the floor for a long time. The adrenaline drained away, leaving behind a hollow, vibrating exhaustion. The shaking in my hands had stopped. I felt strangely calm. The silence outside was an ending, but the quiet inside me was a beginning. The fear was gone, burned away. In its place, something new and hard was starting to form. The silence wasn't an ending, it was an ignition. The ash from the bridges they had just torched was settling, and underneath it, a small, cold fire was beginning to burn. I pushed myself up from the floor, my joints stiff. The silence in the apartment was heavy, a vacuum left by the storm that had just raged in the hallway. My hands were still buzzing with adrenaline. I walked to the kitchen island, the polished concrete cold under my feet, and looked at the coffee I'd made. It was cold. It all clicked because of last night. The noise, the laughter, the clinking glasses. It was the contrast that made this morning's violence so clear. Last night was my father's birthday. We were at the Iron Finch, a new place downtown with ridiculously dim lighting, dark wood, and the smell of smoked old-fashioned and seared steak. It was the kind of place Vivian loved, expensive, designed to be seen in, and utterly impersonal. I sat there, nursing a $9 sparkling water, picking at a goat cheese tartlet. I'd almost not come. The last few family dinners had been thinly veiled audits of my life. Was my business profitable? Yes. Was I seeing anyone? No. Wasn't it time to stop playing designer and find something stable? My studio just landed the Hendricks condo, a $200,000 contract, but I just smiled and said, "I manage." My father, Richard, was beaming. He loved the performance of family. He loved having his wife, Vivian, and his 2 children at the same table, playing happy. He was wearing a new watch I knew he couldn't afford. Vivian, in a silk blouse the color of champagne, was holding court. Trent, beside her, was smug, already half drunk on a $20 glass of scotch. "A toast," Vivian said, raising her glass. Her rings flashed in the candlelight. "To my wonderful husband, Richard, another year wiser." We all raised our glasses. "Happy birthday, Dad," I said. He smiled at me, but his eyes slid away. Landing back on Vivian. They always landed on Vivian. "And," she continued, her voice syrupy sweet, "a very special toast. To Trent." Trent smirked and raised his glass higher. "He's been working so hard on his new app," she said, beaming with a maternal pride she had never once, in 8 years, shown me. "And I am so proud to announce that he is finally having the asset to get his startup properly launched." My father nodded, his expression serious and proud. "It's a big move, a big, necessary move." A cold prickle went down my spine. I looked at Trent. His startup had so far consisted of him designing logos on a stolen version of Adobe Illustrator in their basement. That's great. Trent, I said, forcing a smile. What asset? Vivian laughed. A light, tinkling sound that set my teeth on edge. She reached across the table and patted my hand. Her skin was dry, her rings cold. Oh, honey, the condo, of course. The restaurant noise faded. The smell of the steak was suddenly nauseating. My condo. The condo you're temporarily staying in, Trent corrected, his voice slurring slightly. It's the perfect collateral. Prime location, tons of equity. The table laughed. Not a mean laugh. Just a casual, dismissive chuckle. As if I'd asked a silly, obvious question. As if my home was a communal piggy bank they had all just agreed to break. What are you talking about? I asked, my voice flat. Collateral for what? A business loan. Honey, Vivian said, removing her hand from mine. We've been over this. Trent needs a solid foundation. Your father and I have decided this is the best way. We're a family. We leverage our assets to help each other. My asset, I said. You mean my equity. Don't be so territorial. Lucy, my father said, his smile finally dropping. The annoyance was creeping in. It's just a formality. It's for your brother. He's not my brother. The words were out before I could stop them. The table went silent. Vivian's eyes hardened. We will discuss this at home. This is a celebration. The rest of the dinner was a blur. I left as they were ordering dessert, pleading a headache. I drove home, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. The condo you're temporarily staying in. That was at 11 p.m. By 3 a.m., I had changed every lock and deleted every guest code. I knew they were coming, but that wasn't the part that kept me awake. It was a loose thread. Collateral, leverage, a business loan. How could they leverage an asset they didn't own, now? Standing in the cold Saturday morning light. I knew. I powered on my laptop at the kitchen island. The confrontation at the door had been violent and ugly, but it felt premature, unprepared. They had expected me to just roll over. When I didn't, they resorted to brute force. Why my inbox loaded, junk mail, a newsletter from a fabric supplier, a client query, and an email from Mountain Trust Bank. The sender address was automated. Generic. The subject line read, Action required. Your upcoming appraisal. My blood went cold. I had never, ever banked with Mountain Trust. I clicked it. My heart felt like it had dropped into my stomach. Dear Ms. Lucy Johnson, this email is to confirm your appraisal appointment for your home equity line of credit HELOC application. Property, 1450. Larimer St. Unit 12B. Denver, CO. Date Monday, October 27th. Time, 10:00 a.m. An appraiser will meet you at the property. Please ensure you are present. I wasn't breathing. A HELOC, a home equity line of credit, a loan taken out against the value of my home. I never applied for this. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely use the trackpad. I fumbled for my phone, my thumb missing the icon for my credit monitoring app twice. I logged in. My score was excellent. I scrolled down, and there it was. 1 week ago, a hard inquiry. Source Mountain Trust Bank. My vision tunneled. 1 week ago, before the party, before the toast. The toast wasn't a proposal. It was a celebration. They had already done it. They had applied for a loan against my home, in my name. But how a HELOC application isn't a simple form. It requires a social security number, a date of birth, employment history, income verification, my entire life on paper. The memory hit me so hard I stumbled back. Gripping the edge of the quartz countertop, I was 18, drowning in FAFSA forms for college. My father, newly married to Vivian, had waved his hands at the paperwork. Vivian handles the financials. Lucy, just ask her. Vivian, sitting at my mother's old writing desk in the house they had taken over, her voice, so full of false sympathy. Oh, this is overwhelming, isn't it? Don't you worry your pretty head. I did all of Trent's applications. It's a nightmare. I just don't know what to put for. Honey, just get me the folder. The one your mom kept, with your birth certificate, your social security card, all that official stuff. I'll fill this out for you. It'll be our little secret. We'll get you the maximum aid. I had given it to her. I was a grieving, confused kid, grateful for the help. She had all of it, my birth certificate, my social security card. She knew my mother's maiden name. She knew everything. She had been holding my identity in a file cabinet for a decade, the leather folio, the thick stack of papers Vivian was holding this morning. My breath hitched. They weren't transfer papers. They were the final loan documents, the closing papers for the HELOC. The appraisal on Monday was the last step. They would get the appraisal, and then all they needed was my signature on the final page. That's what this morning was. Not a negotiation. It was a closing. They had come to force me to sign the papers that would steal my own equity. They would have strapped my home with $200,000 of debt. They would have taken the cash, funneled it to Trent's startup, and I would have been left with the bill, and when I couldn't pay a loan I never applied for. The bank would take my home. It was so clean, so vicious, so Vivian. The numbness in my hands turned into a sharp, icy pain. This wasn't a family squabble. This wasn't helping Trent. This was felony identity theft. I moved with a sudden, cold purpose. I took a screenshot of the Mountain Trust email, the date, the time, the confirmation number. I took a screenshot of the hard inquiry on my credit report, the date clearly visible. I went to my desktop. I created a new folder. I named it Evidence Denver. I saved the video from the hallway. File SUP001, hallway threats. I saved the audio. File SUP002, hallway verbal. I saved the screenshot of the email. File SUP003, HELOC fraud. I saved the screenshot of the credit report. File SUP04, hard inquiry. I looked at the folder. 4 files. The beginning of a war. The shock was gone. The hurt was gone. The panic I'd felt last night at the restaurant. The desperate, childish urge to scream, "That's mine," had evaporated. It was replaced by something cold, heavy, and absolute. This was not a disagreement. This was not a betrayal. This was a crime. And I was no longer the victim. I was the chief witness. The folder Evidence Denver sat in the middle of my desktop, a small blue icon that represented a declaration of war. My next move had to be precise. No emotion, just procedure. I found the phone number for Mountain Trust Bank's fraud division. I put my phone on speaker, hit the record button on my laptop's audio software, and dialed. The hold music was a tinny, synthesized version of a song I didn't recognize. "Your call is very important to us. Please hold for the next available agent." My call was not important to them. I was a liability. A file that had been opened by a criminal and was about to be closed by the victim. "Thank you for holding. You've reached the Mountain Trust Fraud and Identity Theft Department. My name is Kevin. How can I assist you today?" Kevin sounded exhausted. "Hello, Kevin," I said, my voice steady, cold. "I am calling to report a fraudulent application for a home equity line of credit. Application number 477B90. "Okay, ma'am, I can certainly look into that for you. Can you please verify the primary social security number on the application? I gave him my number, and the full name and date of birth, Lucy Ann Johnson, May 4th, 1996. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. And for security, can you please tell me your mother's maiden name?" The question landed like a punch. "Hart," I said. The name felt foreign in my mouth. Vivian knew that name. She had used it. She had used my mother's name to steal from me. "Okay, and the address on file." I gave him my address. "Perfect," he said, the word completely meaningless. "Now, how can I help you with this application?" "You are not helping me with it. I am informing you that this application is fraudulent. I did not apply for it. I have never banked with Mountain Trust. This is a case of identity theft." I heard him typing, a fast, rhythmic clatter. "I see. Ms. Johnson, it looks like this application was opened online 1 week ago. We have a scheduled appraisal for this coming Monday at 10 a.m. I am aware. You will cancel that appraisal immediately. You will place a permanent hold on this application. You will close this file, and you will mark my social security number as a victim of identity theft in your system. More typing. Yes, ma'am. I am canceling the appraisal as we speak. I have also placed a high alert fraud flag on the application, which will prevent any further action. The file is effectively frozen. Effectively is not good enough. I want it terminated. I understand your frustration, he said, his script kicking in. To permanently terminate the application and open a full investigation, we do require a police report. Have you filed one? This was the moment. The crossroads. If I filed a report, the police would go to Vivian's house. They would ask questions. It would be messy. It would be her word against mine. They would call my father, and he would lie for her. He would say I was unstable, confused. It would be a family dispute, and I had a folder called Evidence Denver. I had video. I had audio. I had logs. I was not going to hand my pristine, organized case over to a patrolman who just wanted to clear his docket. I am in the process of compiling my documentation to provide to law enforcement. I said, a careful, true, and evasive answer. I will not be filing a report in the next 24 hours. I understand, Kevin said, though he clearly didn't. However, I strongly recommend you freeze your credit. This flag only protects you within Mountain Trust. If the perpetrators have your information, they can apply at any other institution. I accept. Please initiate the freeze across all 3 bureaus. Certainly, I will place the fraud alert with Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. That will be active for 1 year. I will also mail you the packet with instructions on how to manage the freeze. Can I help you with anything else? Yes. I need a ticket number or case number for this phone call, and I need your full name and agent ID. My name is Kevin Masters, and my ID is 70551. Your case reference number is MTFRD90144. I typed it into a text file. Thank you. Kevin, you have been very helpful. I hung up. I stopped the recording, named the file Call 001 Mountain Trust, and dragged it into the evidence folder. 1 brick laid. The wall was started. My phone buzzed on the counter, a text from a number I didn't have saved, but I knew the name, Noah Reyes. My upstairs neighbor in 13B. He was an architect, a quiet man I sometimes shared the elevator with, both of us clutching coffees on early mornings. We nodded. We never spoke. His text was brief. Hey, Lucy. Noah from 13B. Heard the commotion in the hall this morning. My smart doorbell camera records audio on motion. I have a very clear recording of the entire thing. They sounded aggressive. Just letting you know I have it saved if you need it, and I'm happy to be a witness. Hope you're okay. I read the message 3 times. My hands started to shake again, but this time it was with something else. Relief. A visceral, bone-deep relief. I wasn't the only one who had heard it. It wasn't just my recording. I had an impartial third party, a witness. My fingers flew across the screen. Noah, thank you. More than you know. Please keep that file safe. I may need it. I really appreciate this. He replied almost instantly. Already backed it up. Don't worry. Take care. A second brick. Solid. Heavy. I was staring at the folder, my mind racing. When my email pinged, the name on the alert made my heart ache. Aunt Lila Hart, my mother's younger sister. She was a cynical, brilliant divorce attorney in Boulder, and she had hated Vivian on sight. She'd attended the wedding 8 years ago, given them a cheap toaster, and told me in the coat check line, "Your father is a fool. Lucy, don't you ever let that smiling crocodile get her claws in your checkbook. Call me if you need anything. Anything." I hadn't called. I had been too busy trying to be a good daughter. Her email was just like her. Short, sharp, and zero bullshit. Subject: your father. Lucy. Your father called me this morning. He was babbling. Something about you being unstable, having an episode, locking yourself in. He was trying to get me to come to Denver and talk sense into you. He sounded like a weak-willed idiot, and I told him so. I don't know what that woman, Vivian, has done, but I know it's her. I've been waiting for this call for 8 years. Whatever is happening, send me copies of everything, bank statements, deeds, emails, everything. Now, send it to my professional email. I'll store it on my firm's server, just in case. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. The tears I hadn't shed this morning, the tears of fear and rage, pricked at my eyes. But these were tears of gratitude. I wasn't alone. I had a wall. I got to work. I zipped the Evidence Denver folder, the video file from my phone, the audio of the hallway threats, the new audio file from my call with Mountain Trust, the screenshots of the HELOC email, and the hard inquiry. Then I logged into my SmartLock's web portal. I pulled the digital access log from the last 48 hours. Friday, 11:17 p.m. Code: Lucy, lock, Saturday, 3:04. AM, code 1121 Lucy, guest code 1250, Vivian, deleted. Saturday, 3:05. AM. Code 1121. Lucy, guest code 1251 Richard, deleted. Saturday, 3:05 AM. AM code 1121 Lucy, guest code 1252. Trent, deleted. Saturday, 9:02 AM failed attempt 1250, access denied. Saturday, 9:02. AM failed attempt 1250, access denied. Saturday, 9:03 AM failed attempt 1252, access denied. Saturday, 9:04 AM doorbell sensor, motion detected. Saturday, 9:04 AM vibration sensor, tampering. Detected. This was Trent's shoulder. Saturday, 9:05 AM, 10:12 AM. Vibration sensor, tampering detected. 31 instances. I exported the log as a PDF, named it log SmartLock, and added it to the zip file. I uploaded the file to a secure cloud drive, password protected. I sent the link to Aunt Lila's professional email. I sent a separate email to Noah, thanking him again and asking him to please email his file to my aunt's firm as well. So there was a chain of custody. The wall was built. The fortress was secure. All I had to do was wait. Saturday passed in a silent, tense fog. I didn't leave the apartment. I ordered food. I double-checked the locks. I drank tea and watched the city lights come on. My laptop open. My phone on the table. Every car door that slammed in the garage below made me jump, but they didn't come back. Sunday morning, the sun came up. The silence was absolute. They had played their hand. Brute force had failed. Around 9 a.m., there was a knock. It wasn't the pounding from yesterday. It was a light. Polite, almost hesitant tap, tap, tap. I looked through the peephole. Vivian. She was alone. The buttercream suit was gone. She was wearing a soft, dove-gray cashmere sweater. Her hair was down. Her face was arranged into an expression of profound, maternal concern. The mask was back, but it was a different one. This was not the corporate raider. This was the worried mother. My blood ran cold. This was more dangerous than the rage. I slid the security chain into place. I turned the deadbolt. I opened the door 4 inches. Her face was perfectly lit by the hallway light. She even managed to make her eyes look watery. "Lucy, darling," she said. Her voice a soft, wounded whisper. Let's not be like this. Can I please come in? Your father and I, we were just so worried." "No," I said. She blinked, the mask flickering. "Honey, I know you're upset. You're young. You don't understand how these things work, how family assets work. Trent, he just needs a little help. We were always going to pay it back. You committed felony identity theft," I said, my voice flat. "Oh, don't use that horrible, legal language," she said, waving a dismissive hand, her bracelets jangling softly. "This is family. We were just moving things around. A daughter. Lucy, a daughter eventually gets married. She goes off. She builds a new life with her husband. This," she gestured vaguely toward my apartment. "This is all temporary. But family is permanent. Don't be selfish." The word, selfish, for wanting what was mine, for protecting what I had built. I looked at her. at this woman who had used my mother's memory to steal from me, who had sicked her violent son on my door, who had convinced my father to abandon me. "You're right. Vivian," I said, my voice quiet, cutting through her performance. "You just taught me a very important lesson." Her face brightened, thinking she had won. "Yes, honey, that's right. You taught me that family only matters when they need something from you. Otherwise, they're just people who know your mother's maiden name." Her expression froze. The soft, maternal mask cracked and fell away, revealing the hard, cold face beneath. "Now get away from my door," I said. I shut the door in her face, not waiting for a reply. I slid the deadbolt. The click echoed in the silent apartment. I didn't go back to the door. I didn't wait to hear her leave. I went to the kitchen, my hands steady, and finally made myself a fresh, hot cup of coffee. The next phase had begun. The failed attempt at a soft manipulation on Sunday was followed by a silence that was far more sinister. Vivian didn't come back. My father didn't call. It was a digital silence, a void. They had retreated to a battlefield where they felt more comfortable, the one where they could hide behind screens. It started on Monday morning. I was prepping for a client meeting, reviewing blueprints, when a notification pinged on my phone, a Facebook tag. I opened the app. It was a public post from Trent. His profile picture was him on a ski lift, grinning, sunglasses reflecting the snow. The post was just a few sentences, written with his signature blend of self-pity and aggression. Some days you learn who your real family is, and some days you learn what it means to be betrayed by your own blood. Someone I trusted just tried to ruin my future over money. Disgusted. Some people are just sick. He hadn't tagged my name, but he had tagged my father, Vivian, and several mutual family friends. The comments were already rolling in. "What happened? Man. So sorry. Family can be the worst. Stay strong. Whoever did this is garbage. Betrayed by blood. Sick." The words were chosen to wound, but also to plant a seed. The public narrative was beginning. Vivian's words in Trent's mouth. "She's unstable. She's sick." My stomach tightened, but my hand was steady. I took a full-page screenshot of the post. I screenshotted every comment. I named the file FB001 Blood Betrayal and dragged it into the Evidence Denver folder. Then, I opened my email, an automated alert from my Google business profile. "You have a new review." I clicked the link. My business, Juniper Stone Interiors, had a pristine 5-star rating, 47 reviews from happy clients, praising my clean lines, my use of sustainable materials, my attention to detail. Now there were 48. A new one, posted an hour ago, 1 star. The reviewer's name was Mark W. The icon was a generic gray circle. The review was short and devastating. "Do not hire. This designer is completely unreliable and dishonest. She took our deposit and we never heard from her again. When we tried to follow up, she became erratic and verbally abusive. We are exploring legal action. Avoid at all costs. She seems psychologically unstable." My blood pressure spiked. Dishonest. Psychologically unstable. I had never had a client named Mark W. I had never taken a deposit and disappeared. This was a fabrication. This was Vivian. The language was hers. The calculated attack on my professionalism, my sanity, before I could even process it. Another email came in. An alert from Town Square, the local Denver community app where professionals are vetted and recommended. Another review. 1 star. From Sarah J. I am posting this as a warning to the community. "We hired Juniper Stone for a major renovation. The project started well, but the owner, Lucy, became incredibly difficult. She would miss meetings. Her designs were incomplete, and she seemed to be having some kind of personal breakdown. When we questioned her, she became hostile. We believe she is deeply dishonest and unstable. We had to fire her and hire someone else to fix the mess. My reputation, my livelihood, the business I had built from nothing, the thing that gave me the power to fight them in the first place. They were systematically dismantling it. I wasn't shaking anymore. The hot panic was gone, replaced by an Arctic calm. This was tactical. and I would be tactical in return. I didn't just screenshot the reviews, I clicked on the profiles. Mark W. had been created on Google that same morning. It had 0 other reviews. Sarah J. on Town Square was the same. A brand new account. I copied the text from both reviews into a single document. The phrasing was nearly identical. Dishonest, unstable, legal action, fix the mess, personal breakdown, psychologically unstable. It was sloppy. It was arrogant. Vivian and Trent, in their rage, had used the same script. They were so sure I was a weak, emotional girl that they hadn't even bothered to be creative. I saved the document. Review. Comparison. I saved the screenshot. Review. Google. I saved the screenshot. Review. 3. Town Square. I was about to start the dispute process on both platforms when my phone rang. The name on the screen made my heart stop. Hendricks, Anna, my biggest client, the $200,000 contract. I took a breath and answered, forcing my voice to be bright, professional. Anna. Good morning. I was just reviewing the swatches for the living room, Lucy. I need to pause the project. Her voice was not warm. It was clipped, corporate. Oh, I said, my stomach clenching. Is everything all right? Did you want to reconsider the velvet? No. This isn't about the design. Listen, I don't know what's going on in your personal life. And frankly, I don't want to. My personal life. A friend of mine in the real estate community forwarded me a review. Something about you being unstable. I ignored it. Then this morning, my husband saw a Facebook post from a relative of yours. Something about betrayal. And now I hear from a colleague that you're being investigated for fraud. My blood turned to ice. What? That's not true. That is absolutely not true. I don't know what's true, Lucy, but this is a $250,000 project. I can't have that kind of drama or liability attached to my home. I can't have an unstable designer who might be in legal trouble holding the keys to my condo. Anna, please, I am being targeted. This is a smear campaign from my family. It's related to a personal dispute. That's what I was afraid of, she said, her voice final. You're mixing business and family drama. I'm sorry. Lucy, I really am. I love your work. But my attorney is advising me to terminate the contract. We'll pay for the hours you've billed. But that's it. We're done. The line clicked. I stared at the phone. The swatches for her sofa were still fanned out on my desk. A deep, beautiful sapphire velvet. This was the goal. Not just to take my home, but to destroy my ability to have a home, to make me dependent, to make me crawl back to them, broken, and beg them to sign the papers in exchange for them calling off the dogs. My phone rang again. This time, it was Aunt Lila. I just saw the Google review, she said, skipping hello. Some old client of mine sent it to me. Who is Mark W? He doesn't exist, I said, my voice hollow. Neither does Sarah J. on Town Square. And Anna Hendricks just terminated her contract. She said she heard I was being investigated for fraud. Lila let out a string of curses that would have made a sailor blush. The HELOC. Vivian didn't just apply. She's spreading the rumor that you committed the fraud. She's flipping the script. The goddamn monster. Okay, this is it. What do I do? Lila. Nothing. Not yet. You don't dispute the reviews. You don't call Anna Hendricks back. You don't reply to Trent's post. You do nothing but document. This is not a family matter anymore. Lucy, this is textbook harassment, defamation, and tortious interference with business. This is a crime, and you are building the prosecution's case for them. Okay, I whispered. I could do that. I could be cold. I could be a machine. I want you to open a spreadsheet, Lila commanded, her voice pulling me back from the edge. I want a timeline. Column 1, date and time. Column 2, the event. Column 3, the evidence file name. Column 4, the perpetrator. I opened a new document. My fingers flew. October 26th, 8:15 p.m. The Iron Finch. Verbal threat. N.A. Vivian Cole. Trent Cole. October 26th. Time unknown. Fraudulent HELOC application. File SFA004. Hard inquiry. Vivian Cole. Unknown IP. October 27th, 9:02 a.m. Harassment at residence. File SFA001. Hallway threats. V. Cole, T. Cole, R. Ellison. October 27th, 9:04 a.m. Attempted breaking and entering. Log 001. Smart lock. Trent Cole. October 27th, 9:15 a.m. Verbal threat unstable. File 002. Hallway verbal. Vivian Cole. October 28th, 9 a.m. Verbal manipulation. Doorbell cam deleted. Vivian Cole. October 29th, 10:00 a.m. Public defamation. FB001 blood betrayal. Trent Cole. October 29th, 11:30 a.m. Libel. Business defamation. Review 002 Google. Unknown. Vivian Cole. October 29th, 11:32 a.m. Libel. Business defamation. Review. Town Square. Unknown. Vivian Cole. October 29th, 11:45 a.m. Tortious interference. Hendrick's phone log. Vivian Cole. Looking at it laid out like that, the cold rage solidified into something heavy and sharp. This wasn't a series of random attacks. This was a coordinated, escalating campaign. I created 2 new subfolders inside Evidence Denver. I named them Defamation and Harassment. I sorted the files. My phone screen lit up. A text message. From my father. We are having a family meeting tonight at the house. 7 p.m. Attendance is mandatory. Attendance is mandatory. Not can we talk? Not are you okay? It was a summons, a disciplinary hearing. After destroying my reputation and attempting to steal my home, they were now ordering me to appear before them. They still thought they were in charge. I looked at the timeline. I looked at the text. Lila, I said into the phone, he just summoned me to a meeting tonight. Attendance is mandatory. Lila was quiet for a second. Okay, good. They're arrogant. They're going to do it in person. You're going to go. After all this, yes, you are not going to be the victim. You are not going to be the disobedient child. You are going to be the plaintiff. They want a meeting. You're going to give them a goddamn deposition. A plan formed. Cold, clear, and final. I know what to do. I said, after I hung up with Lila. I didn't pace. I didn't cry. I put on my shoes. I grabbed my keys and my wallet. I walked out of my apartment, got in the elevator, and drove to Paper Nest, the 24-hour print shop downtown. The air inside smelled of hot toner and paper. A bored-looking kid was behind the counter. I need to print and bind. I said, for the next hour, I used their workstation. I logged into my cloud drive. I printed every file, the email from Mountain Trust Bank, the hard inquiry report, the screenshots of Trent's post and all the comments, the screenshots of the 1-star reviews, the call log from my smart lock, the timeline, the transcript of Noah's audio, the transcript of my call with Kevin at the fraud department. I printed it all. 3 identical copies. The stack of paper was thick, warm from the copier. I need these bound. I told the clerk, 3 ring binders, the heavy-duty black ones, and I need spine labels. He took the stacks. I gave him the file for the labels. He slotted the clear plastic strips into the spines of the 3 black binders. Vivian Cole. Richard Ellison, Trent Cole. He handed them to me over the counter. They were heavy. I put one on the shipping scale by the door. 2 pounds, 4 ounces. The weight of the truth. I paid in cash. I walked back to my car, carrying the 3 binders. They were my armor. They were my weapons. I drove home. I sat at my kitchen island and looked at the 3 black binders lined up on the quartz. Vivian, Richard, Trent. My father wanted a meeting. Attendance was mandatory. I huffed out a single, sharp laugh. He had no idea what he had just done. He had just set the stage. He had provided the location. He thought he was summoning his wayward daughter for a lecture. He was about to host his own execution. I looked at the clock. 4 p.m., 3 hours to go. I took a deep breath. Tonight was not about negotiating. It was not about finding common ground. It was not about saving my family. It was about drawing a line so bright and so final that they would never, ever be able to cross it again. I arrived at 7 p.m., the house I grew up in. The one my mother had painted a soft robin's egg blue was now a sterile, cold beige, inside and out, Vivian's touch. The smell of the foyer was different too. Not my mother's lemon oil and old books, but a sharp, chemical potpourri that smelled like a hotel lobby. I was carrying the canvas bag with the 3 binders. It was heavy on my shoulder. I heard their voices from the dining room before I saw them. They sounded casual, relaxed. They were waiting for the disobedient child, ready to put her in her place. I walked to the doorway. The room was exactly as I remembered, but colder. The heavy oak dining table, the one my mother had hosted Thanksgiving at for 20 years, was polished to a mirror sheen. The crystal chandelier above, which used to cast a warm, golden light, was now fitted with harsh, daylight white bulbs that reflected coldly off the polished wood. It felt like an interrogation room. They were all there. Vivian sat on the side, perpendicular to the head. She was wearing a navy blue cardigan, buttoned all the way to the top. She was adjusting the cuff, picking at a piece of lint that wasn't there. Trent was slumped in his usual chair, his phone glowing under the table. He looked bored, annoyed that his evening was being interrupted. My father, Richard Ellison, sat at the head of the table. He was wearing his reading glasses, which he always did when he was trying to look serious and paternal. He was the picture of the disappointed patriarch. "Lucy, you're here." "Good," he said, as if I had a choice. "Sit down." I did not sit. I remained standing in the doorway. My father sighed. A put-upon sound. "Don't be difficult. We are trying to resolve this." Vivian spoke, her voice smooth, reasonable. The concerned mother from Sunday was back. "Lucy, honey, your father is right. This has all been a terrible misunderstanding, a failure to communicate." She gestured to a thin stack of papers in the center of the table. They were held together by a simple paperclip. "We've had the lawyers simplify everything," she said. "It's just a simple release. You sign this, we sign this. It basically just loops Trent's business into the family trust and leverages the asset. In exchange, we'll forget this whole episode. Your defiance, the locks, we can just forget it." She slid the papers across the table. They stopped a few feet from me. "Just sign it, Lucy, and we can all go back to being a family." I looked at the thin stack of papers, their entire plan, their entire betrayal, reduced to a few sheets. I walked to the table. I unslung the heavy canvas bag from my shoulder and placed it on the oak. The thud was loud in the quiet room. Trent looked up from his phone. Annoyed by the sound, I unzipped the bag. I pulled out the binders. 1, 2, 3. I set them down. They were black, thick, and identical. I slid the first one across the table. It slid past their flimsy papers and stopped directly in front of Vivian. The spine label was facing her. Vivian Cole. Her smile faltered. She looked at the binder as if it were a snake. I slid the second one to Trent. Trent Cole. I slid the final one to my father, Richard Ellison. "What is this?" my father asked, taking off his glasses. "This isn't funny." "Lucy, this is a serious family matter." "I agree." I said. My voice was low. It didn't tremble. "It is incredibly serious. Open it." Vivian was the first. Her fingers, with their perfect French manicure, rested on the cover. She opened it. The first page. My tab. Fraud. It was the email from Mountain Trust Bank. The confirmation of the HELOC application, the Monday appraisal time, and at the top, in a bold, red 20-point font. I had typed the case number Kevin gave me. Fraud Investigation MTFRD 90144. I watched her face. The blood drained from it. She went from her artificial tan to a sick, gray-white. Her eyes darted to me, wide with panic, and then to my father. To see if he was looking. He wasn't. He was staring at his own binder. Trent, meanwhile, had opened his... He scoffed. I don't get it. It's just a bunch of bank crap. He wasn't interested. Keep turning. Trent, I said. He flipped angrily through the pages, past the HELOC application, past the hard inquiry. He stopped. His body went rigid. He had reached the defamation tab. There, at the top of the page, was a perfect, full-color screenshot of his Facebook post. Betrayed by your own blood. Some people are just sick. He looked up at me, his mouth open, a small nervous twitch starting in his upper lip. Turn the page, I said. He did. On the next page were the 2 one-star reviews, Mark W. and Sarah J., side by side. I had used a red pen to circle the identical phrases. Psychologically unstable, dishonest, personal breakdown. His face went pale. He looked at Vivian. You said this was airtight. You said, be quiet. Trent, Vivian hissed. Her face was no longer pale. A splotchy, angry red was creeping up her neck, staining her cheeks. She looked at me. Her eyes narrowed to slits. You wouldn't dare. You would not tear this family apart over a house. Your father would never allow it. And then, my father turned a page. He had been slowly working his way through the ownership tab. I watched his index finger trace the signature on the deed. Lucy Johnson. He turned the page. The mortgage origination. Lucy Johnson. He turned the page. The first of the 96 mortgage statements. Paid. Juniper Stone Interiors. He turned and turned and turned. 96 pages of proof. 96 months of my life. He finally reached the end of the payments. He stopped. He knew what he was looking at. His name was nowhere. He turned one last page. He had reached the timeline. He saw the hard inquiry from Mountain Trust Bank. He saw the date, 1 week before his birthday. He saw the entry for the dinner at the Iron Finch. He saw the toast. To Trent, finally having the asset to get his startup launched. I watched his head lift. He looked over the top of his glasses at me. His eyes, which had been so sure and authoritative, were now completely, utterly lost. He looked like a man who had just woken up in a foreign country. He finally understood. The toast, the party, the asset, it had all been a lie. He had been a pawn, celebrating the theft of my home. His gaze slid from my face to Vivian's. Vivian, he whispered. This is identity theft, I said. The words dropped onto the polished table like stones. Trent flinched. My father's head snapped back to me. That is the legal term for it, I continued, my voice cold and clear. Applying for a loan using someone else's social security number, their birth certificate, their mother's maiden name. It is a federal crime. My father looked back at Vivian. The question was in his eyes. Vivian's mask didn't just crack. It exploded. She shot to her feet, her chair scraping violently against the wood floor. She slammed both palms flat on the polished table. The binders jumped. He is your son, she screamed, her voice breaking, pointing a trembling finger at Trent. Your son, not her. He needed this. We needed this. This business is failing. Richard. We are going to lose everything, my father recoiled, his face ashen. She has everything, Vivian shrieked, her rage now directed at me. That giant apartment. The successful business. She was being selfish. She refused to help her family. So I helped us. I did what a mother is supposed to do. I provided for my son by stealing from me. I said, it wasn't stealing. It was family. That's enough, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through her hysteria. She stopped, her chest heaving. I stood up straight, placing my hands on the back of my chair. This is what happens now, I said, looking at each of them. Those binders are copies. The originals are in a very safe place with my attorney, along with the audio of you threatening me in my hallway. Trent sank lower in his chair. The HELOC application is frozen. The bank's fraud department has an open case. The police report, however, has not been filed yet. Vivian's eyes widened, a flicker of something. Hope. She thought this was a negotiation. This is not a negotiation, I said, as if reading her mind. This is a list of terms. My terms. You will never contact me again. Not by phone, not by text, not by email. You will not come to my home. You will not come to my office. You will not speak my name to any of my clients. I looked at Trent. You will delete that Facebook post, and you will figure out how to delete those reviews. I don't care how. I looked at Vivian. If I receive one more text message, if my business receives one more one-star review, if my name comes out of your mouth to anyone, ever again, I will take my evidence binder to the Denver Police Department and I will file a report for felony identity theft, harassment, and defamation. I will file for a permanent restraining order against all three of you. I will use these binders to burn your entire world to the ground. Silence. Vivian was breathing hard, her mouth open. Trent was staring at the table. My father finally spoke. Lucy, please, we're a family. You can't. I looked at him, the man who had stood by the elevator, the man who had let this happen. The family, I said, is over. You ended it. I zipped up my empty canvas bag. I put the strap on my shoulder. I turned my back on the three of them, on the cold dining room, on the house I no longer recognized. I walked out of the room, down the hall, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was running away. I heard my father call my name. Lucy, his voice weak and cracking. I didn't stop. I opened the front door, stepped out into the freezing night air, and pulled it shut behind me. The click of the lock was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. The victory at the dining table felt absolute. I had walked out of that house, leaving their world in ruins, and reclaimed my own. The silence from them was immediate and total. Trent's Facebook post vanished within an hour of the meeting. The phone calls stopped. The texts stopped. The victory, however, felt hollow the next morning. I opened my laptop, my coffee steaming beside me. I typed in the name of my business, Juniper Stone Interiors. There it was, my digital reputation, shattered. The 47 glowing, 5-star reviews of my work were now anchored to the bottom of the ocean by the 2 fake, 1-star reviews. My overall rating was a hideous 1.6 stars. The reviews. Mark W. and Sarah J. had not been removed. Of course they hadn't. That part of my ultimatum had been hopeful at best. Deleting a Facebook post was easy. Removing vetted reviews on 2 different platforms was nearly impossible. They were digital landmines, and they were working. Anna Hendricks's contract cancellation was just the first. On Tuesday, I received an email from the Belden Group. They were canceling the lobby redesign I'd been drafting for 3 months. The email was polite, citing internal budget restructuring. I knew what it was. On Wednesday, the Park Reeves, a young couple I adored, called to cancel their kitchen renovation. They were less polite. We saw the reviews. Lucy, the ones about you being unstable. We can't risk our deposit. 3 major contracts, 3 pillars of my income for the next 6 months. Gone. The silence from my family was a strategic retreat. They had already done their damage. They had planted the bomb and walked away. Now they were just waiting for it to bankrupt me, waiting for me to come crawling back, forced to sell the condo just to survive. My life reorganized itself into a new, grim routine. My afternoons became a bureaucratic hell. I spent hours every day in the automated dispute portals of Google and Town Square. I wrote professional, detached explanations. I uploaded my evidence. File 3. HELOC fraud. Review. Google. Log. 1. Smart lock. I attached the PDF of the timeline. I attached the audio file from Noah. The one where Vivian called me unstable in the hallway. The response, when it came, was always the same. An automated email, usually arriving 24 hours later. Dear business owner, we have reviewed your request regarding the review by Mark W. We understand your concern. However, we have found that the content does not violate our policy. We are unable to remove this review. The machine was siding with the liars. I was fighting an algorithm, and I was losing. My mornings became my sanctuary. My mornings were for design. I still had 2 small projects. Clients who had signed before the smear campaign. I treated them like gold. I would turn off my email, silence my phone, and dive into the work. I would focus on the lines of a blueprint, the texture of a fabric, the specific warmth of a particular shade of white. Here, in the CAD software, was a world that made sense. Order could be created from chaos. My work was good. I knew my work was good. I had a consultation with a new potential client, a woman named Mrs. Gable, for a home library. She was older, sharp, and had an eye for detail. She had come on a referral from a client from last year. I knew she hadn't seen the reviews, or she wouldn't be here. She was looking at my portfolio. This is lovely work. Lucy, very clean. My heart was pounding. I had to do it. The lie. If she found it later, would be worse. Mrs. Gable, I said, folding my hands on the table. Before we discuss materials, I need to address something. If you look up my business online right now, you will see 2 one-star reviews that are horrifying. Her smile faded. She looked wary. I am currently the target of a malicious smear campaign by my stepfamily. It involves identity theft and defamation. The reviews are fake. I have filed fraud reports with the bank and submitted all the evidence to the platforms, but the system is slow. I wanted to tell you this, face to face, because I am not dishonest. I pushed my physical portfolio across the table. This is my work. These are my real client references. They speak for me. I will understand completely if you don't want to proceed. She was silent for a long time. Studying my face, I wasn't begging, I was just stating the facts. It was the new, terrible cost of doing business. She looked down at the reviews on her phone, which she had discreetly pulled up. Then she looked back at my portfolio. Half the new clients I tried this with had walked. They thanked me for my time and never called back. The risk was too high. Mrs. Gable closed her phone. She tapped the blueprint I had sketched. The people who wrote those reviews. They sound hysterical. You do not? The drawings are good. Let's talk about the built-in shelving. I let out a breath I had been holding for a week. It was a single, small victory, but it was enough. That weekend, I needed to touch something real, something that wasn't a screen or a legal document. My balcony was a 15 by 5 foot slab of concrete. I went to the local nursery and bought 3 large terracotta pots, 3 bags of soil, and 3 small plants, rosemary, for remembrance, mint, because it was impossible to kill, and basil, because the scent reminded me of my mother's kitchen. I spent the afternoon on my knees, in the cold autumn air, pushing my hands into the soil. It was gritty and real. I packed the dirt around the fragile roots, watered them, and placed them in the sliver of sunlight. I touched the leaves, the sharp, clean scent of rosemary, the bright, spicy smell of basil. It was a lesson in patience. You can't rush growth. You can't scream at a plant to make it grow faster. You just have to give it what it needs and protect it. I would come out every morning with my coffee and check on them. It grounded me. The hallways of my building were quiet. The storm had passed. One morning, I was waiting for the elevator, and it opened. Noah, from 13B, was inside. Our eyes met. He had been my witness. He had heard the threats. He knew. He didn't give me the sad, pitying smile that so many people did when they heard family drama. He just looked at me, saw I was still standing, and gave a single, respectful nod. I nodded back. The doors closed. It was the most supportive conversation I'd had all week. My new life had a third act. My mornings were for design, my afternoons were for the bureaucratic fight, and my evenings became for the future. I was scrolling through an industry blog when I saw an ad, the Front Range Young Builders Program, It was a mentorship and grant program for up-and-coming designers, architects, and builders in the Denver area. The prize was $50,000 and a mentorship with the top developers in the city. The deadline was the next day. I looked at my 1.6-star rating. I looked at my canceled contracts. I felt like a complete fraud, but I applied. I stayed up half the night, not writing about my struggles, but about my design philosophy, about sustainable sourcing, about creating sanctuary in urban environments. I attached my portfolio the Hendricks condo, the Belden lobby drafts, the Park Reeves kitchen. Even though it was canceled, I sent it off at 3 a.m. It was an act of desperate hope, a message in a bottle. I started doing something else in the evenings. I opened a new document and wrote a speech. It was a 10-minute presentation. I didn't know who I was writing it for. Maybe for the Young Builders program. If by some miracle I got an interview, maybe just for myself. I practiced it in my living room, standing in front of the sofa, my 3 herb pots visible on the balcony behind me. Resilience, I said, my voice echoing in the quiet apartment, is not about avoiding the fall. It's about what you build on the way back up. I was running through it one night, pacing the floor, my mug of coffee in hand. I had been drinking too much. My stomach was in knots. I stood up too fast from my desk, and a sharp, searing pain shot through my abdomen. I gasped, doubling over, clutching my side. It was a hot, twisting knot that made my vision blur for a second. I breathed through it, leaning against the wall. It faded after a moment, leaving a dull, throbbing ache. Too much coffee. Lucy, I muttered. Too much stress. I ignored it. I had real problems to deal with. I sat back down at my laptop, intending to shut it down for the night. An email pinged into my inbox. The sender made my heart stop. From Front Range Young Builders Program subject. An update on your application. My hand was shaking. I clicked it. Dear Ms. Johnson, we are pleased to inform you that your portfolio has advanced to the next round. The committee was exceptionally impressed with your work. We would like to formally invite you to the finalist interviews. I read the words 3 times. The finalists. I was a finalist. The pain in my side was forgotten. A smile, the first real, unguarded smile in weeks, spread across my face. It wasn't a solution. It wasn't the $50,000, but it was a light. It was a direction. It was a validation that my work, my actual work, was stronger than their lies. I printed the email and put it on my nightstand. I went to bed, exhausted, but with a flicker of hope I hadn't felt in years. I fell asleep almost instantly, the adrenaline of the good news overriding the fatigue. I was completely unaware that the faint, throbbing ache in my side was not from the coffee, it was not from the stress, it was a countdown. The hope from that email lasted exactly 4 hours. I woke up at 2 a.m. It wasn't a gradual waking. It was a violent, sudden snap from sleep into a reality of pure, blinding pain. The dull ache from earlier was gone, replaced by a white-hot knife twisting in my lower right side. I gasped, but I couldn't get a full breath. A cold sweat drenched my body instantly, soaking my t-shirt and the sheets. I curled into a fetal position, my knees to my chest, which only seemed to intensify the agony. It felt like something inside me had burst. Okay, just breathe. I whimpered, but the pain was stealing my air. It wasn't like the coffee. This was not stress. This was an alarm. I tried to sit up, to get to the bathroom. The movement sent a wave of nausea so powerful I fell back against the pillows, my head spinning. The room was dark, but the lights of the city outside cast long, skeletal shadows across the floor. I was alone. The thought was as cold and sharp as the pain. I was on the 12th floor, completely alone, and something was terribly wrong. I fumbled for my phone on the nightstand, my fingers stiff and clumsy. I knocked it to the floor. I slid out of bed, landing on my hands and knees. The pain of the impact made me cry out. A short, sharp sound. I crawled the 2 feet, grabbed the phone, and dragged myself back onto the bed. My hands were shaking too badly to type in my passcode. I used my Face ID. The screen flared to life, blindingly bright. I didn't think. I hit the emergency call icon. 911. The operator's voice was calm. 911. What is your emergency? I don't know. I gasped. Clutching my abdomen, I'm at 1450 Larimer. Unit 12B. Severe abdominal pain. Lower right. I think it's my appendix. I can't move. Okay, ma'am. Help is on the way. Is the door to your building unlocked? No. Keypad. Can you get to the door to let them in? I can't, I whispered. I was going to pass out. Tell them. Code. 8989. My old code. The one I hadn't changed. The operator confirmed the address. They were on their way. The next 10 minutes were a blur of sirens approaching, of me lying on the floor of my entryway, my forehead pressed against the cold concrete. I heard the building's main door buzzer, then heavy, running footsteps in the hall. EMS, ma'am. Can you hear us? I was right by the door. Here, I managed. They had their own master key for the unit. The lock turned. The door swung open. 2 paramedics, a man and a woman, were suddenly over me, their faces grim. Hi. Lucy. I'm Mike. This is Jen. Where does it hurt? Here. I pointed. He pressed his fingers gently into my side. I screamed. Okay, definitely appendix. Classic rebound tenderness. Let's move. They were fast. They had me on a gurney, a BP cuff on my arm, an IV line in my hand before I could even process it. The elevator, the lobby, the cold night air, the doors of the ambulance slamming shut. The siren was deafening. We were moving. Blood pressure is low, Jen said. She's pale. Going into shock. Lucy, are you allergic to any medications? No, I don't think so. Okay, honey. We're almost at St. Vesper. We're going to take good care of you. We need an emergency contact. Who can we call? My mind was white with pain. I couldn't think. I couldn't remember Aunt Lila's number. I couldn't think of Noah's. The only number that was burned into my brain from a decade of filling out forms was the one I had been taught to use. The one that was probably still on my old medical files. Vivian, Cole, Ithready, my stepmother. Jen nodded. Writing it down. Got it. We'll call her from the hospital. You just hang on. St. Vesper Medical was a blur of fluorescent lights streaking overhead as they ran the gurney through the automatic doors of the emergency bay. The smell hit me first. That sharp, inescapable smell of antiseptic, bleach, and something metallic. The air was cold. 28-year-old female. Query appendicitis. Acute abdomen. Signs of shock. The paramedic rattled off to a doctor in blue scrubs. They moved me from the gurney to a bed in a curtained-off bay. The doctor, a woman with tired eyes and dark hair pulled back, pressed on my stomach. Yep, that's a hot appendix. It might have already ruptured. We need to get her to surgery. Get me a full CBC, and let's get a CT scan to confirm. A nurse, a kind-faced older woman, was at my side, checking the IV. Hi, sweetie, I'm Carol. We're trying to reach your emergency contact. Vivian Cole. We've left a message. Okay, I whispered. The pain was a constant. Screaming roar. Is there anyone else we can call your father? He'll be with her. Okay, we'll just wait for her to call back. They wheeled me to a CT scanner, a giant white donut that hummed. They pushed contrast dye through the IV, a warm, strange feeling that spread through my veins. Then they wheeled me back. I was lying in the bay, the curtains drawn. The sounds of the ER were all around me. A machine beeping steadily, a cough from the next bay, a doctor giving quiet orders, and then a new sound. Click, clack, click, clack, high heels, moving fast and angry on the linoleum floor. The curtain was ripped back. Vivian stood there. She was not in her soft cashmere sweater. She was wearing a sharp black peacoat, perfectly applied lipstick, and an expression of pure, undaunted fury. It was 3:30 in the morning. She looked like she was ready for a board meeting. The nurse, Carol, hurried over. Oh, Mrs. Cole. Thank you for coming. Your stepdaughter Vivian held up one hand. She did not look at me. She looked at the nurse. Her voice was not a whisper. It was not a shriek. It was a calm, clear, Arctic cold statement, loud enough for the entire triage nurses station to hear. "She is not my daughter." Nurse Carol stopped, her mouth slightly open. "I'm sorry." "She is not my daughter," Vivian repeated, enunciating every word as if Carol were stupid. "I am her stepmother, legally, and as of this month, we have disowned her. She is no longer part of our family." I was lying on the gurney, the sheet up to my chin, and I couldn't move. I could only watch. "Ma'am, I don't understand," Carol said, her professionalism straining. "She's listed you as her emergency contact. She's going into surgery. You need nothing from me," Vivian snapped. "Do not call this number again. She has severe psychological problems. She is unstable. She is a compulsive liar. She was using the words from the reviews. She was planting the seeds right here in the hospital, whatever financial obligation she is incurring." Vivian continued, "Is hers alone. We are not responsible for her. The doctor in the blue scrubs, the one with the tired eyes," stepped forward. "Ma'am, this is not about finances. This is about medical advocacy. If something goes wrong in surgery, then that is her problem," Vivian said, her eyes like chips of ice. She finally looked at me, not with hatred, not with anger, with nothing, just cold, dismissive contempt. "She is over 18. She is on her own. I want it noted in her chart. No guardian, no family contact. We are not involved." The doctor's eyes narrowed. "I will not be noting that, but I have noted your refusal. Now please, you are in the way." Vivian stared the doctor down for one more second, then scoffed. She smoothed the front of her coat. "Fine, just don't call me again." She turned, her heels clicking, and she was gone. The curtain swung shut, leaving a stunned, cold silence in the bay. Nurse Carol looked at me, her face a mask of pity and horror. "Sweetie, I am so sorry." I tried to say something, but my throat was closed. "It's okay," the doctor said, her voice sharp. "We don't need her. Lucy, you are 28. You are your own guardian. You can consent for your own surgery. Do you understand what's happening? Your appendix is inflamed, and we need to take it out right now." I nodded, the tears finally coming, hot and silent. "Okay, let's prep her. Now." As they were wheeling me out of the bay, I heard Nurse Carol speaking in a low, furious voice to another nurse at the desk. I have never, in 30 years, seen anything like that. That woman was a monster. She demanded we note "no guardian" in the file. I heard someone else, a man's voice, hurried, out of breath. "Excuse me, I'm looking for Lucy Johnson. Unit 12B, I'm her neighbor. Noah Reyes. I got an alert on my phone. From her smart lock. It said, 'Door opened by EMS an hour ago.' I came as fast as I could. Is she okay?" Nurse Carol's voice, suddenly hopeful. "You know her. Sir, you're her neighbor." "Yes, I'm in 13B. What happened?" "She's being prepped for emergency surgery." "Sir, did you happen to see a woman in a black coat leave just now?" "No, I just got here." "Why? Never mind. Can you wait?" "She's going to need someone when she gets out." "She has no one." "I'll wait," Noah said, his voice firm. "I'm not going anywhere. And I am a witness, if you need one, for anything." They were pushing my gurney toward the surgical wing. The lights were getting brighter. "Dr. Miles." A new voice, sharp, authoritative. "Stop that gurney." The gurney stopped. I looked. It was Aunt Lila. She was in a rumpled pantsuit, her graying hair a mess, her eyes blazing. She was holding her phone in one hand and a thick file folder in the other. "Aunt Lila," I whispered. "I'm here." "Baby," she said, her voice catching for just a second before hardening. "I got Noah's text. I broke every speed limit from Boulder. Now, who is in charge here?" The doctor, Dr. Miles, looked confused. This is my patient. She's going to surgery." "Good. You take care of her," Lila said. "But first, where's the hospital administrator? I need to see them." "Right now." "Ma'am, it's 4 a.m., Nurse Carol said. "I don't care if it's Christmas morning. You get me an administrator." "My client?" Lucy Johnson, was just verbally assaulted in your ER by a woman who has been systematically attempting to defraud her. And I have a recording of your nurse's station just now confirming it. Aunt Lila was holding up her phone. She had been recording. Furthermore, she said, marching past us toward the admin station, that woman, Vivian Cole, committed a criminal act by misrepresenting herself as a guardian, and then again by abandoning a patient in distress. I want security footage. I want the logs. I want a full incident report. This hospital is now a material witness in a criminal investigation. Nurse Carol's jaw was on the floor. Aunt Lila turned back to me, her face softening for a split second. You go, baby. You get fixed. I'll handle the snakes. Dr. Miles just nodded, stunned. Let's go. They pushed me through the big double doors, under the sign that said Surgical Suites. The lights were intensely bright, white, and surgical. They moved me onto a cold, narrow table. A man in a blue cap smiled down at me. Okay, Lucy, I'm going to give you something to make you sleep. I looked up at the giant, multifaceted surgical light above me. It looked like a cold, mechanical flower. Vivian's words echoed. She's not my daughter. She had no idea. She thought she was cutting me off. She thought she was abandoning me, making me weak. But she had just done it in a building full of security cameras. She had done it in front of impartial, professional witnesses. She had done it in a place that keeps meticulous records. She had just taken her digital smear campaign and made it physical. She had just handed me the one piece of evidence I couldn't get myself irrefutable. Third-party proof of her malicious intent. A cold, peaceful feeling spread through my chest as the anesthesia began to burn in my veins. My last thought, as the white light dissolved into blackness, was simple. Thank you, Vivian. Thank you for finally showing the world exactly who you are. When I woke up, the world was fuzzy and gray. My side was a deep, throbbing ache, but the sharp, knife-like pain was gone. The air smelled like stale coffee. A machine was beeping. Slow and steady. I blinked, my eyes struggling to focus. Two figures were sitting in the uncomfortable-looking visitors' chairs. Aunt Lila was asleep, her head back, mouth open, her rumpled suit a mess, and next to her, tapping quietly on his phone, was Noah. He looked up, saw my eyes were open, and gave me a small, tired smile. Hey, neighbor, he whispered. Welcome back. They were there, not Vivian, not my father, my real family. I was in St. Vesper Medical for 2 days. The surgery was a success, a routine laparoscopic appendectomy, but my body felt battered and hollowed out. The pain from the incision was a sharp, binding fire, a constant reminder of the physical violation. But it was a clean pain, a healing pain. It was nothing compared to the slow rot of the last 8 years. While I focused on the agonizing, shuffling walks up and down the hallway, clutching my IV stand. Aunt Lila was a whirlwind. She had met with the hospital administrator, the head of security, and the charge nurse, Dr. Miles, and Nurse Carol. She had collected statements, apologies, and most importantly, promises. The morning I was discharged, the same charcoal-suited administrator who had been so dismissive to Lila at 4 a.m. arrived at my door. She looked like she hadn't slept. She was holding a thick 9 by 12-inch envelope. Ms. Johnson, she said, her voice clipped and professional. On behalf of the administration, I want to again apologize for the distressing encounter you experienced upon your arrival. It is not our standard of care. Aunt Lila, who was packing my bag, didn't even turn around. Save it. We have compiled the full incident report you requested. The administrator continued, placing the envelope on my bedside table. It includes notarized statements from all staff involved, the official report of the incident, and a hard drive. The drive contains the complete, time-stamped security footage from the ER triage desk and the hallway where Ms. Cole made her statements. We have complied fully. She left without another word. I looked at the envelope. It was the final piece of the binder. Vivian, in her arrogance, had just gift-wrapped her own prosecution. Lila drove me home. Noah had offered, but Lila had waved him off. Lawyers only from here on out. Kid, she'd told him, but you're witness number one. Keep your phone on. She settled me onto my sofa with a mountain of pillows, a bottle of water, and my pain medication. Then she sat at my kitchen island with her laptop and the envelope I had just been given. "All right, Lucy," she said, pulling her hair back into a functional, messy bun. "I handle divorces. Angry, messy divorces. But this is identity theft, felony-level harassment, and financial crimes. We are out of my league. We need sharks. We need specialists." She made one phone call. "David, it's Lila Hart. I'm good. Listen, I'm sending you a new client, and I'm sending you a case that is going to make your entire quarter. It's got everything: identity theft, a documented smear campaign, tortious interference, and a smoking gun from a hospital administrator who's terrified of a lawsuit. Yes, the evidence is pristine. Her name is Lucy Johnson. A video consultation was arranged for the next day. I sat on my sofa, propped up, my laptop balanced on my knees. The men from Ridge Wren LLP were not warm. They were not sympathetic. They were precise, cold, and visibly impressed. Mr. Wren, the senior partner, looked at the camera, his face impassive. "Ms. Johnson, this is the most complete pre-litigation evidence package I have ever seen. The timeline is immaculate. The hospital incident is the key. It moves this from a messy family dispute, which judges hate, to a documented, malicious threat." Her statement, "She is not my daughter," followed by, "She has psychological problems," in a public medical setting, establishes a clear pattern of malicious intent to defame. They took the case. The first thing they did was not to file. The first thing they did was to cast the net. Within hours, official preservation of evidence letters were sent via courier and email. Legal holds. They went to Mountain Trust Bank, demanding every log, every IP address, every keystroke associated with the fraudulent HELOC application. They went to Google and Town Square, demanding the preservation of all data related to Mark W. and Sarah J., including the IP addresses used to create the accounts and post the reviews. And they went to the cell carriers for Vivian Cole, Trent Cole, and Richard Ellison, demanding that every text message, call log, and data record be preserved. Pending a subpoena, the trap was set. Now, we waited. We didn't wait long. The first fish to swim into the net was Mountain Trust Bank. An email from Wren arrived 4 days later. Subject: Mountain Trust response. "Lucy," they complied. "The IP address used to originate the HELOC application on October 26th at 2:17 p.m. has been logged. It traces back to a commercial address in Cherry Creek." He listed the address. I didn't recognize it. I typed it into Google. My breath caught in my throat. The search result glowed on my screen. Cole Sun Realty, Vivian's family business, the one my father had been forced to prop up for years. She had done it, from her own desk, at her own office, the sheer, sloppy, blinding arrogance of it. She was so sure I was a child. So sure I would just roll over and sign the papers that she committed a federal crime on her work computer. I forwarded the email to Lila. Her reply was 2 words: nailed her. The next domino fell 2 days later. Google and Town Square. The legal letters had bypassed the automated dispute system. My case was no longer being judged by an algorithm. It had been escalated to senior analysts in their legal compliance departments. The 1.6-star rating was still there, but a new tag had appeared under the reviews from Mark W. and Sarah J. "This review is under investigation for a violation of platform policy. They're looking at the metadata," Wren explained over the phone, his voice clipped. "They see the accounts were created on the same day. They see the identical phrasing, and I'm willing to bet they're seeing the same IP block. They're no longer investigating your complaint. They're investigating the reviewers for platform manipulation." The pressure was working, and it must have trickled back to the source. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, a number I had blocked, but the text preview came through. "My father, Lucy. pick up the phone. Please, we need to talk. I stared at it, that weak, desperate attempt to pull me back into the shadows where he felt comfortable. This is not about lawyers, it's about family. Another buzz. I didn't know. Lucy, I swear to God, I didn't know about the HELOC. I thought it was just papers. Vivian told me you had agreed to help Trent. I didn't know. The pathetic, cowardly lie. The ultimate betrayal. He had stood by the elevator. He had sat at the head of the table. He had chosen, over and over. I took a screenshot of the texts. I forwarded them to Mr. Wren. I remembered my lawyer's explicit instructions. You are recovering from major surgery. You are not to be stressed. We handle all communication. I did not reply. Now, the offensive. The hospital incident gives us the credible threat we need, Wren explained. We are filing for a temporary restraining order, immediately. The next few days were a blur of documentation. My evidence binders, which had served as my psychological weapon, were now formalized into legal declarations. I had to get dressed, my side screaming in protest, and go to a notary to sign my official statement. Aunt Lila signed an affidavit detailing her 4 a.m. arrival at the hospital, her conversation with Nurse Carol, and my father's earlier, manipulative phone call. Noah Reyes, my quiet, steadfast neighbor, met with their paralegal. He handed over the original, high-fidelity audio file from his smart doorbell on the morning of the attack. He signed an affidavit confirming its authenticity and stating his willingness to testify. Mr. Wren's office took my meticulous timeline PDF and submitted it directly to the Denver County Police Department, along with the IP evidence from Mountain Trust. They officially opened a criminal investigation into Vivian Cole for identity theft. Simultaneously, they filed the civil suit, a petition for damages. It was beautiful in its cold, brutal accounting. It listed the Hendricks contract, citing the email where Anna had fired me, quoting the unstable and legal trouble rumors. It listed the Belden contract. It listed the Park Reeves kitchen. It estimated the total loss of business and damage to my professional reputation at over $100,000, and climbing. The final piece landed in my inbox on a Friday morning. 1 week after my surgery, it was an email from the court clerk, forwarded by Wren, the petition for a temporary order of protection, Johnson v. Cole, Ellison, and Cole, has been received. The hearing was set. Next Tuesday, 10 a.m. A summons was being issued. Vivian, Trent, and my father were being served. This was not a family meeting. This was not a text message I could ignore. This was a court of law. The woman who had tried to erase me, who had stood in a hospital and declared she is not my daughter in an attempt to render me invisible, would now be legally compelled to stand in front of a judge and see me. Vivian Cole was finally being forced to show up. The invitation from the Front Range Young Builders program was a shock. It had come while I was still shuffling around my apartment, clutching a pillow to my stomach. They had received my application, the one I'd sent in at 3 a.m, and had been impressed. Then, their director explained, they'd seen the bizarre activity on my business reviews. They had almost disqualified me, but the interview request for the finalist round, the one I'd received right before my appendix burst, had been sitting in their system. They wanted to meet me. And after my interview, which I'd done via a shaky Zoom call from my sofa, they had made an extraordinary offer. They didn't just want me as a finalist. They wanted me to be the keynote speaker at their annual symposium. The topic they had proposed, and which I had accepted, was rebuilding a career amidst a smear campaign. So here I was, 3 weeks after surgery, standing backstage in a dark auditorium. The incision in my side was a dull, angry line, pulling tight under the new, sharp blazer I'd bought. I felt too thin, a little fragile, but my hands were steady. I could hear the murmur of the crowd, hundreds of designers, developers, and investors, all settling in. I was not here to talk about my feelings. I was not here to cry. I was here to present a case study. My name was called. I walked out onto the stage. The lights were so bright I couldn't see a single face, just a vast, dark void. "Good morning," I said. My voice, amplified, sounded strong. 3 weeks ago, my interior design studio, which I built from scratch, had a 1.6-star rating on Google. I had lost 3 major contracts, totaling over $250,000, and I was being told, by people I trusted, that I was psychologically unstable. A hush fell over the room. I am not here to talk about family drama, I continued, my voice measured, clear. I am here to talk about the business of survival. I am here to talk about documentation, because the stories people tell about you are only as powerful as the evidence you fail to collect. I clicked the remote. On the giant screen behind me, a single, clean slide appeared. It just said, Evidence, Denver. For the next 10 minutes, I did not talk about my father. I did not say the name Vivian or Trent. I used the clinical terms my lawyers had taught me. The perpetrators, the bad actors. I walked them through the fraudulent HELOC application. I explained, in calm procedural terms, how to file a fraud report with a bank, how to record a call legally, how to pull the metadata from a smart lock to prove a timeline. I showed them, step by step, how I had cross-referenced the fake Mark W. review with the timeline of the harassment, creating a direct link between the two. I did not speak with bitterness. I spoke with the cold, hard clarity of a CEO reporting on a crisis. This was not a personal attack. It was a hostile, criminal takeover of my brand and my identity. And then I told them about the hospital. The perpetrator's final mistake, I said, was moving their digital lies into the physical world. They made their defamatory statements, not just on an anonymous review site, but in the triage bay of a major hospital. I clicked to my final slide. It was a blank, white screen. They said I was unstable. They said I was a liar. But they did it in a building with a legal department, in front of highly credible medical staff, and in full view of a dozen security cameras. Your reputation is your work, but your shield is your documentation. Thank you. I stood there. The silence was absolute, a thick, heavy blanket. I suddenly feared I had gone too far, been too cold, too legal. Then, one person in the front row stood up and started to clap, then another. Within seconds, the entire auditorium was on its feet, the applause rolling over me like a wave. It wasn't pity, it was a standing ovation of respect. As I walked off stage, my heart hammering, a man in a beautiful gray suit stepped in front of me. He was tall, with sharp eyes. Ms. Johnson, he said, extending a hand. Mark Harrison, from the Claiborne district. Your portfolio was impressive. Your resilience is more so. My team will be in touch. I shook his hand, my mind buzzing. I bypassed the networking reception, the offers of coffee and congratulations. I just wanted air. I needed to be alone. I pushed open the heavy glass doors of the convention center lobby and stepped out onto the street, and they were there. They were standing near a concrete pillar, looking utterly out of place, like crows in a field of doves. Richard and Vivian, they looked terrible. My father's face was gray, papery, etched with a new, desperate anxiety. Vivian was pale. Her expensive suit hung on her. The Trow summons, the civil suit, the criminal investigation, the documents had found their mark. My father took a hesitant step toward me. Lucy, kid, you did great in there. That was very professional. He sounded like he was trying to compliment me at a school play. I just looked at him. Vivian didn't move. She watched me, and for the first time, I saw what was behind the rage, behind the manipulation. It was fear, pure, high-octane terror. The look of a puppet master who had not only had her strings cut, but was now tangled in them, her own creations pulling her down. She had lost control, completely. She tried to smile. It was a grotesque, cracked expression that didn't touch her eyes. Lucy, she said, her voice a strained, unfamiliar whisper. This has all gone too far. All of it. Lawyers, the police. It's so ugly. This isn't us. Can't we just start over? Put this all behind us. I looked at this woman who had tried to steal my home, ruin my life, and abandoned me in a hospital. I felt the pull of my own healing stitches beneath my blazer. I will start over. Vivian, I said, my voice quiet. The moment starting over no longer means me giving you back the power you tried to steal. Her face crumpled. My father looked like I had struck him. I walked past them, not waiting for a reply. I didn't look back. I stepped to the curb and hailed a cab, leaving them standing in the shadow of the pillar. I was halfway home, the city sliding by in a blur, when my phone buzzed, an email from Mr. Wren. Subject platform update. I opened it. Lucy, Google and Town Square have both concluded their internal investigations. The reviews from Mark W. and Sarah J. have been permanently removed for gross violations of platform identity manipulation policy. Furthermore, their teams are actively investigating a cluster of newly created accounts linked to the originating IP address. Your business rating is back to 5 stars. I stared at the screen. The 1.6 was gone. It was just gone. I arrived at my building, my hands shaking. I walked into the lobby, checked my mail, and found a certified letter, thick, formal cardstock. The return address was Mountain Trust Bank, Legal Affairs. I took it upstairs, slid it open with my kitchen knife. It was a single page. Dear Ms. Johnson, this letter is to confirm that our internal fraud investigation has concluded. We have found conclusive evidence of identity theft related to your Social Security number and the HELOC application 477B90. This application has been permanently terminated and flagged. We have forwarded our findings to the Denver Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit. I dropped the letter on the counter. The HELOC was dead. The reviews were dead. I was standing there, just breathing, when my phone rang. An unknown number. I answered it. Hello, Lucy Johnson. This is Mark Harrison from the Claiborne District. I meant what I said. We're redeveloping an entire block in Rhino. We need a lead designer for the residential interiors, and we want it to be you. We'd like to make a formal proposal to you and your team next week. I hung up the phone. I looked at the letter from the bank. I looked at my 5-star rating, glowing on my laptop screen. A smile touched my lips. It was real, but it wasn't celebratory. These were victories. They were foundations. But the structure wasn't finished. The nails weren't in the coffin. Vivian's offer to start over was just another manipulation, a last-ditch effort to avoid public accountability. The applause was nice. The job offer was life-changing, but the knot was still there, pulled tight, because tomorrow was the hearing for the restraining order. Tomorrow. The battle moved from my laptop and my hospital bed into a court of law. Tomorrow was not about my reputation. It was about my safety. Tomorrow, the final, binding cut would be made, not by me, but by a judge. The courtroom was small, smelling of old floor wax, stale coffee, and the faint, dusty scent of paper. The heavy wooden chairs creaked under the weight of the nervous silence. The fluorescent lights overhead hummed, casting a flat, sallow light that made everyone look exhausted. I sat at the petitioner's table, Mr. Wren beside me, my hands folded on top of a single, slim folder. My side ached, a dull, pulling throb from the incision, a physical reminder of why we were here. Across the narrow aisle, at the respondent's table, sat Vivian and Trent. My father was not there. His cowardice, in the end, was absolute. He had been served, but he had declined to appear. He had left them to face this alone. They looked hollowed out. Trent stared at the wood grain of the table, his knee bouncing, his face pale and blotchy. Vivian was rigid, her spine straight, her expensive suit looking like a costume. Her face was a mask of furious denial, her eyes fixed on the judge, refusing to look at me. We are here on the petition for a temporary restraining order. Johnson versus Cole, Ellison, and Cole, the judge said, his voice flat. He looked at Mr. Wren over his glasses. Counselor, you have a high bar to clear. I don't typically intervene in family financial disputes. Mr. Wren stood. He was the picture of calm, procedural precision. Your Honor, this is not a financial dispute. This is a case of criminal identity theft, escalating harassment, and a documented, malicious campaign to destroy my client's livelihood and personal safety. The financial element was merely the weapon. He began. He didn't start with the money. He started with the hospital. We submit Petitioner's Exhibit A. Your Honor, the official, notarized incident report from St. Vesper Medical, dated October 31st, and Exhibit B, the corresponding high-definition security footage from the ER triage desk. The clerk handed the file to the judge. The courtroom was silent as the judge put on his glasses and began to read. I watched his face. His neutral expression slowly tightened. His eyebrows climbed. He read Nurse Carroll's affidavit. He read Dr. Miles's sworn statement. He read the administrator's summary. He stopped, his head snapping up. He looked over his glasses at Vivian. "Ma'am," the judge said, his voice suddenly sharp, losing all its boredom. "This report alleges that you arrived at the hospital where Ms. Johnson was being prepped for emergency surgery, and I quote, stated to the staff, 'She is not my daughter. We have disowned her. She has severe psychological problems.'" Vivian's lawyer, a man who looked like he was in over his head, jumped to his feet. "Your Honor, my client was under duress. This is a complex family matter. It stopped being a complex family matter and became a public safety issue the moment your client defamed a patient to her treating physicians." "Counselor," the judge snapped, "sit down." He looked back at the report. Vivian's mask was cracking. A muscle in her jaw jumped. "Please continue." "Mr. Wren," the judge said. "Thank you, Your Honor." Wren was just getting started. The language Ms. Cole used in that hospital. Psychologically unstable. Liar is key. Because it is the identical defamatory language used in a coordinated online smear campaign against my client's business. He motioned to the back of the courtroom. "We have a representative from Mountain Trust Bank's fraud division, who has been subpoenaed." A woman in a crisp gray suit was called, sworn in, and took the stand. Wren's questions were like surgical cuts. "Ma'am, can you confirm your division investigated a fraudulent home equity line of credit application in the name of Lucy Johnson?" "Yes, we did." "Was it fraudulent?" "Conclusively, it was a case of identity theft. Did you trace the IP address that originated this fraudulent application?" "We did." "And can you tell the court where that IP address resolves to?" "It is a commercial IP address registered to a business in Cherry Creek, Cole and Son Realty." Trent made a small, choking sound, like a dying animal. Vivian's eyes shot to him, filled with pure venom. "Thank you," Wren said. "And Your Honor, we have also cross-referenced the server logs, the fake, one-star reviews posted to my client's business profiles. Reviews which, I remind you, use the exact same defamatory language Ms. Cole used in the hospital, were posted from that very same IP block, on the same day. The judge was now staring at Vivian. She looked like she had been carved from ice. Finally, "Your Honor," Wren said, "this is not just about digital or financial harm. We have a credible threat of physical violence." He produced the digital audio file. "This is from the petitioner's neighbor, Mr. Noah Reyes, taken from his smart doorbell on the morning of October 27th. He pressed play. The small, quiet courtroom was suddenly filled with the sound of my life from 3 weeks ago. The heavy, sickening thud, thud, thud of Trent's body hitting my apartment door. And then his voice, clear as day, screaming, "Open this door right now. This is my house. You're going to pay for this. Lucy." Trent sank so low in his chair he almost disappeared. He was bright, beet red. The audio clicked off. The silence that followed was heavy and absolute. The judge took his glasses off. He folded his hands. He looked, for a long, cold minute, at Vivian. "Ms. Cole, I have an official hospital report that says you abandoned a patient in your care and defamed her to medical staff. I have testimony that your office computer was used to commit felony identity theft against her. I have audio of your son physically threatening her at her locked door. Before I rule on this petition, I want to ask you one simple, direct question, and I advise you to think very carefully about your answer. Do you, under oath, deny that you made those statements at St. Vesper Hospital?" This was it. Her final performance. The stage was hers. Her jaw worked. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked at her lawyer, who just stared at his legal pad. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a hatred so pure it was almost beautiful. If she said yes, she would be committing perjury. The security footage, Exhibit B, was waiting. If she said no, she was admitting to the core of my case. Vivian Cole said nothing. Her silence was the loudest confession in the room. I see, the judge said. He picked up his gavel. The petition for a temporary order of protection is granted, effective immediately. Vivian Cole, Trent Cole, and Richard Ellison are to have zero contact, direct, indirect, or through a third party, with the petitioner. Lucy Johnson, you will not text her, call her, or email her. You will not post about her online. You will stay 300 feet away from her person, her residence at 1450 Larimer, and her place of business. Juniper and stone interiors. Violation of this order will result in your immediate arrest. We are adjourned. The gavel cracked, sharp and final. It was done. Wren was already packing his briefcase as Vivian and Trent stumbled out of the courtroom. Your Honor, he said, catching the judge, we will be filing the full civil suit for damages this afternoon. We also formally request that this court's findings be transferred to the Denver Police Department to be appended to their ongoing criminal investigation. I walked out of the courthouse and into the cold, clean air. I was free, but there was one last stop, my post-op checkup. It was scheduled for that afternoon. Back at St. Vesper. It was poetic, ending this whole thing in the very building where Vivian had handed me my final weapon. I walked into the bright, sterile lobby. The smell of antiseptic was sharp, but this time, it just smelled clean. I was walking toward the surgical wing elevators when I heard my name. Lucy. I turned. Vivian was standing there, by the same information desk where she had disowned me. She must have known about my appointment. It was her last, desperate ambush. She looked ravaged. Her mask was gone. Lucy, please, she said, her voice a desperate whisper. She took a step toward me. You don't understand what I did. It was for the family, for your father. He was going to lose everything, the business. It's all gone. You can't let this happen. You have to call them off. The lawyers, the police. You can stop this. Please. She was still trying. After everything, she was still trying to make me responsible for her consequences. I just stood there, looking at her. I didn't have to say a thing. The automatic doors of the hospital lobby hissed open behind me. 2 men in dark, conservative suits walked in. They were not doctors. They were followed by a man in a deputy sheriff's uniform. They scanned the lobby, their eyes landing on our small group. They walked directly toward us. Vivian's face went white. A truly bloodless, skeletal white. No, she breathed. The man in the lead suit addressed her, his voice devoid of emotion. Ms. Vivian Cole. She just nodded, frozen. I am Investigator Michaels, from the Mountain Trust Bank Forensic Division. This is Deputy Sheriff Reed. We are here to inform you that you are the primary subject of a criminal investigation regarding felony identity theft and multiple counts of wire fraud. The deputy sheriff stepped forward, holding a thick packet of papers. Ma'am, you are also being served with this notice in relation to the ongoing harassment and defamation investigation filed by Ms. Lucy Johnson. Vivian looked wildly from the investigator, to the cop, to me. She was trapped in the center of the lobby, the exact spot where she had held all the power, and then, in a final, glorious moment of panicked stupidity, she turned to Trent, who had just skidded to a stop behind the officers. Her voice was a low, venomous hiss, a whisper that I and the investigator heard perfectly. I told you not to use the office IP. I told you. The bank investigator's eyebrows shot up. He had heard it, the final nail. The deputy sheriff pushed a clipboard and a pen toward her. Ma'am, I need you to sign here, acknowledging receipt of these documents. The only sound in the bright, white, sterile lobby was the scrape of the cheap ballpoint pen on the paper. The dry, scratching sound of her signature, the sound of her entire world ending. She looked up at me one last time. Her eyes were empty. The puppet master was dead. I looked straight back at her. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel joy. I just felt done. This time, the person who wasn't her daughter was her problem. I turned my back on her. I walked away. Toward the elevator. Toward my appointment. Toward my new life. The automatic doors of the hospital slid shut behind me. The sound final. The beep of the machines and the hum of the white, fluorescent lights faded. The revenge was absolute. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where in the world you're tuning in from. Please, let me know in the comments so we can connect and share your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to Maya Revenge Stories, like this video, and hit that hype button to help this story reach more people who need to hear it.